Elon Musk has created the Borg. Hello, welcome to Dangerous Policy, a channel aimed at intelligent people wanting to discuss important issues facing life and society. My name is Crispin, and today I want to discuss the breakthrough development by Elon Musk's Neuralink of injecting a microchip directly into the brain of a monkey, allowing it to play their video game Pong telepathically. It is a remarkable breakthrough in augmentation of the physical body with electronic devices. And I want to discuss in some detail the potential consequences of this from a humanity perspective and an ethics perspective. When Elon talks about this, he's a little disingenuous in the sense that he rightly points to the very obvious benefits of such technology, namely being able to assist those with physical disabilities, paraplegics, quadriplegics, potentially walking again. And this makes perfect sense. It's hard to argue with the idea that if your brain signals aren't reaching the extremities of your body, but you can circumvent that using electronic technologies, then why not do that to help this person walk? This is a potential amazing epoch change in the therapeutics of this kind of physical trauma. And yet, Elon, when he was originally envisaging Neuralink and this idea and the problem that he wanted to solve, it wasn't helping the disabled to walk. What Elon was referring to was his fear of general artificial intelligence. That is, an intelligence that is artificial, that is self-aware, that is able to have its own consciousness, able to direct its own goals, those goals being independent of any human factor. And from Elon's point of view and the views of others like him, like Sam Harris, that general and artificial intelligence is ultimately inevitable, that if computing power just continues on its current trajectory, that eventually humanity will create a technology that is self-aware, able to modify its own code, after which this would result in an exponential expansion of this technology's capabilities. That is, if you create an artificial intelligence that has a self-learning ability and is self-aware and able to have independent goals and motives, then it may begin to rewrite its own code, thus self-improving. A good example would be like The Matrix, where someone simply downloads the ability to become a pilot or downloads the ability to play the piano or to speak a certain language. Well, it would mean that a artificial intelligence might go from, a couple of hundred IQ to 10,000 IQ in the space of minutes or hours, because it could rewrite its own code to expand its own abilities. And as it did that, it would have a snowballing effect, where as it expanded its own abilities, it would open up brand new avenues to expand its abilities further, to the point where humanity simply could not compete, let alone control, this particular artificial intelligence in such manner as it may result in our physical replacement. Now, this might sound fantastical. I have done a video on artificial intelligence, but on a different aspect of artificial intelligence, not general AI, but just artificial intelligence as it is. I'll leave a link in the description. But Elon is genuinely afraid of this. He thinks that we are hurtling towards a world in which we are going to be replaced by our own creation. And in fact, some computer scientists, people working in this area who agree with him, actually are proud of this idea. They're like, humanity won't even be relevant anymore. We're going to be the progenitor, the mother of essentially a godlike new race. And this is something that they are genuinely excited about. Elon treats this with a high degree of trepidation. And his solution to that problem is for humanity to catch the ride, essentially. The only way humans can compete in a world where general artificial intelligence exists, in his view, is for us to augment our own capacities with technology that allows us to link up with one another and create a sort of a collective intelligence of our own. Now, this concept has been explored in science fiction before, namely through Star Trek and the Borg. The Borg is, without question, the most powerful and significant and terrifying antagonist of the Federation in that television show, wherein a group of individuals decided to augment themselves through the powers of biotechnology, incorporate the synthetic into their natural evolution, and create a collective consciousness. And as a consequence of that, they stopped existing as individuals and instead became a collective. And they go around the galaxy. Their catchphrase is "resistance is futile," and that they will assimilate others into their collective, adding their biological and technological distinctiveness to their own. And there's a great depth of exploration into what it means to be part of the collective, what it means to give up your individuality, and the risks of technology in that context. Now, this was well before the invention of the mobile phone, and today we already have a collective consciousness to a degree. Most of us have our mobile phones within arm's reach at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We can easily describe it as an extension of our own human body. We use it for all kinds of information gathering and sharing and communicative systems. So if we want to know the weather, if we want to share something on social media, if we want an answer to a particular question, if we want to know where we're going, if we want to know what our calendar looks like, all of that is accessible and quickly relied upon by a human connected to their own personal device, almost as a physical appendage of their own body. And in the Star Trek universe, when a Borg drone, an individual, is separated from the collective, all they can think about is rejoining the collective. And then once they start to realize that they can't hear all the other voices and that they are, in fact, alone, they're overcome with deep feelings of anxiety. And there have been several stories in the annals of the Star Trek franchise. And when I say this, I'm ignoring the new Kelvin kind of stuff. That's a catastrophe. But in the classic sort of Next Generation, DS9, the golden age of Star Trek, there was plenty of stories where individuals had been separated from the collective and had to reintegrate back into individual society. Now, that really depended heavily on how young and for how long an individual had been a drone. So, for example, Captain Jean-Luc Picard was only in the collective for a short period of time. Will always remember that experience and has been profoundly affected by it, but spent most of his life as Jean-Luc Picard, and therefore reclaiming something that he had lost wasn't the same kind of journey as, say, Seven of Nine, who had spent her entire adult life as a drone. So these are powerful stories of how if you attach someone from a young age to a technological dependency to augment their interactions with modern life, how that will have profound changes for that person over life. And we can talk about that in the context of young children dealing with their iPads and things like that being raised through technology and what that might mean for them long term. We are already on that journey. So when I talk about this breakthrough in technology that Elon Musk's Neuralink has achieved, I want to say that we're not starting from zero. We are starting from somewhere along that curve, but still on a relative basis, if we think of the Borg Collective is 100, where no one is an individual. They all have a collective consciousness, collective will, and collective thoughts. And 0 being we don't have any electronic means of communication whatsoever. We are already somewhere on that spectrum. We are not at 0, but we are not at 100. And what Elon Musk's Neuralink will do is push us significantly along that spectrum. There is a serious implications for doing that, because all the drawbacks that we are experiencing from technology at the moment will be exacerbated 1,000-fold. And I don't think it's a linear progression either. I think it's an exponential curve. If we start using technology as the primary means of our physical day-to-day interaction, that is, our arms and legs are no longer required for us to exist as a consciousness, that the primary tool mechanism for which we experience the universe is something implanted in our brains by others, well, that does call into question our ability to exist as individuals and have a human experience. So, for example, if all the work that we did in the world was telepathic, we just controlled robots with our brains, we did all our banking through our brains, we could alter our physical perception to go on holidays with our brains. So, our physical body might be in our living room or in the studio, and instead are in another place, in sort of Valletta, Malta, or in Hawaii. That would be a profound shift in what it means to be a human being, but as I said, further along that spectrum. Now, Elon Musk is really pushing us in that direction, where we reduce our ability to have individual experiences that can then contribute to a collective whole, towards having a single collective experience in and of itself. So, for example, at the moment, you might go somewhere or have a wedding, or find a new partner, or have a child, or some new life experience, and you'll share that information on social media, through Facebook, through Instagram, through all these other platforms, and that will share your personal experience with a collective whole for a collective feedback, okay? But it's a different thing entirely if the experience itself is collective and you as an individual is basically incidental. And that dividing line between that part of you that is you and that part of you that becomes the collective technology becomes increasingly blurred. And what's more, I think this is Elon Musk's specific objective, because in order to compete with general AI, you need to have the combined intelligence of the entire human race continuing to self-improve along that journey. And the most efficient way of doing that is through sharing thoughts, feelings, emotions, and a collective will. So this technology that Elon is creating right now, yes, in the short term will have profoundly positive implications for people who have experienced physical traumas. And if I was a paraplegic or a quadriplegic or had some other physical problem in that regard, I would be thrilled and excited by what is happening in the field of this Neuralink technologies, without, all the possible negative implications be damned. And yet what it does mean for our collective consciousness, our collective experience relative to us as individuals is extremely profound. And we shouldn't negate that. And we should also remember what Elon Musk's objective is. Now, I don't mean to say that Elon is a villain or anything like that. I actually find him, I have a lot of time for the guy, right? I think he's extraordinarily clever. And as far as billionaires go, he's very interesting, very based, has a good sense of humor, and I can understand his fears in this respect, that if you do accept as fiat that we will create a general artificial intelligence that we will be unable to control and will be able to self-improve, then if humanity does not adapt to that in order to compete itself, then potentially we are creating something that will replace us. And Elon, I'm sure, has the most positive motivations in that regard. But just because something is an imperative, and certainly the jury's out on this artificial intelligence, but let's assume for argument's sake Elon is right. just because something is imperative doesn't mean we shouldn't stop to do things the right way. And so my message to Elon is to look at all the drawbacks that we have currently with our technologies, the way we, interrelate with one another. I think something like 70% of relationships are now starting through apps, and I've discussed at length the real drawbacks of that. I think we have regressed in terms of our human courtship, the way in which if you separate someone from the technology, how they feel, how they're diminished as a person, how anxious they become, just like a disconnected Borg drone. So simply to say, oh, look, you could just turn Neuralink off and go about your normal life if it isn't working for you, I don't think it is at all viable. And that is to get away entirely from the extraordinary risk that comes with this technology in terms of hacking, in terms of government control. Elon should be able to articulate what he thinks the Chinese would do with this sort of technology with regards to its own population. I don't think he's commented on that. So then we do need to take a pause. We need to take a pause at this moment of triumph, which is what it is. Like, it is extraordinary to watch a monkey play a computer game with its mind. I mean, that just tells you in 20, 30 years or less where we will be in that technological ability. That everything we can do with a mobile phone today, we'll probably be able to do tenfold already or more just with our own minds. That is an extraordinary new epoch change for the human race. And what it also means is that the jumps of technological change that we have been going through over the past 30, 40 years, unbelievably broken from the thousands of years before that, will continue to go on this exponential curve if we can then implant things right into the human brain. Nevertheless, at this moment, having experienced the fact that we are already along this technological journey, we should be able to identify all those areas where we have become diminished as humans as a consequence of this technology rather than just enhanced. And as we move forward with the Neuralink thing, which is the Pandora's box is open now, this technology is going to come, how we can develop it in such a way as to maintain our individuality, that this Neuralink technologies that come down the pipeline are subservient to the individual and not masters. It is a good debate as to whether or not we control the mobile phone or that it controls us. And I think Elon doesn't need the money, right? So he doesn't need to go, how do I make Neuralink the most addictive technology that I possibly can? I firmly believe that there is a problem that he is trying to solve. Whether that problem is being solved in the right way is a matter of debate. But certainly the problem right now, immediately today, is to go, okay, look at all the things that are wrong with us in terms of our connection to the computers and mobile phones, other areas of technology that we are reliant on day to day. How would that translate to a physical injection into the human brain for a microchip that connects us with the collective of the rest of humanity? What are the risks to our individual identity? How slavish to this collective will we become as individuals? And the Borg is a living, breathing, visual example, albeit from imagination, as to where this is likely to go. How can we minimize those risks into the future? So this is kind of like an opening bid discussion. I would really encourage people from Neuralink to have a look at it, answer some of the questions that I've raised if you've already thought about it, because I'm sure there's very bright people have. What are your own thoughts on this technology? Am I going way beyond what is likely to happen? Are we talking purely about fixing physical body ailments and correcting people who are unable to access certain limbs? Or are we talking more broadly about this collective, as I've discussed? Because I think that's where Elon is going, just through his own articulations of what he sees as the risks and opportunities of the future. Please leave your comments down below about these issues and hit the like button. Subscribe to us if you haven't already, and share this video for those that might be interested. Thank you so very much, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.